Good afternoon. Welcome to the press briefing on Hong Kong air quality. I'm Stephen Siu. I've been newly posted to the Air Quality Management Division of EPD. This is the first time we meet. I hope we can have further exchanges in the future on the air quality in Hong Kong. My presentation will be divided into 3 parts. I will first give you an update on the air quality situation in Hong Kong in 2022, and then I will give an analysis of challenges we face in managing air quality and what we have to do to further improve our air quality and our measures to tackle air pollution and what measures do we have to continue to improve our air quality in Hong Kong. Please take a look at the slide first. There are 2 charts here. Self-explanatory. The first is our ambient air pollutants, and the second is on roadside air pollutants. For the chart on the right, we can see that the concentration of most air pollutants have fallen. In particular, for sulfur dioxide, we've seen a reduction of close to 60%. For other kinds of pollutants, such as nitrogen dioxide and respirable suspended particles, or RSP, PM10, and also fine suspended particulates, PM2.5, we have seen a reduction of close to half. So in the past 10 years, we have seen gradual improvement in our air quality. In particular, I'd like to mention that in 2002 or 2022, we saw a further declining trend. So in the past 10 years, we saw the best air quality in 2022. The trend for our roadside situation is more or less the same, and the reduction is in the range of 45 to 65%. Now we would like to turn to air quality health index, health risk. This should be familiar to you, as the index is frequently mentioned in weather forecasts and reports. The AQHI will reflect the risk to the public. The days with high risk, high health risk. On the right-hand side, we've got the number of days, and as recorded in our roadside air quality monitoring stations. Hang on.
個畫面冇轉到。
我知道。
個機
而家有冇轉到？而家係。
The slide has not changed with my presentation. Let's overcome the technical hiccup.
一咧佢就撳嗰個好似茶杯嗰咧就放唔
唔係佢應該同個大環幕同我哋呢一樣噶嘛，佢出唔到，佢 freeze 咗喺嗰度。直情係 freeze 咗。
從來。得啦，
而家得啦，等等。好，再試下上得 OK，
得。
好。
咁我再重複一次。
So now, let's talk about the Air Quality Health Index. Let's look at the graphs there. The red line represents roadside stations. So since 2014, the start of this scheme, we can see that the general number of days has been decreasing. And for high health risk days, there are only 28 days. So the decrease is more than 84%. As for the roadside stations, the number of days has dropped by nearly 30%. And on the right, the number of hours, as you can see, the trend is similar to that of days. But for the number of hours, the decrease is even more significant. The number of hours dropped by 40% at roadside stations. At ambient stations. As for roadside stations, the decrease was 84%. So we can see that the overall air quality is improving, posing less risk on the public's health. As for the third indicator, that is the visibility, I'm sure you're familiar with it, because in weather reports by the Hong Kong Observatory, this indicator is often mentioned. In 2004, number of hours with reduced visibility was 1,570 hours. The number dropped to 401 hours in 2022. So we can see that there is a significant downward trend. Although there is some fluctuation, but it does not affect the overall downward trend. Even though in 2022 there is a slight increase, but we can see that there has always been a fluctuation. What's important is that we have a downward trend. So in 2022, we are seeing more and more blue skies this year. So this is a general overview of the air quality in Hong Kong. And now we would like to talk about the air quality situation in the Pearl River Delta. The Guangdong and Hong Kong government has been closely cooperating with each other. We have worked together and rolled out various measures to improve air quality. In 2003, we signed a Pearl River Delta Regional Air Quality Management Plan. Under this framework, the two governments has rolled out emission reduction measures, including on vehicular emission, vessel emission, and emission from power plant. and also control on volatile organic compound VOC. This is to control the regional air quality. In 2005, we have established a regional air quality monitoring network. We can more effectively monitor the changes in the regional air quality. And in 2014, the monitoring area expanded to Macau as well. This completes our monitoring network. And for carbon monoxide and other pollutants such as fine suspendable particulates are included as a regular monitor item, so that we can get a better understanding of the changes of pollutants in the region. Hong Kong and the Guangdong Department has also set emission reduction targets together for sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, etc. We set targets for 2010, 2015, and 2020. Upon review, basically, we have reached all our targets, and this is helpful in improving air quality. So now we are focusing on tackling regional ozone problem. So with all these measures in place, what is the regional air quality like? We can refer to the graph here. For the 4 types of major pollutants, including PM10, PM2.5, nitrogen oxide, and nitrogen dioxide and sulfur dioxide, there are decreasing trends. And for 2022, the air quality is the best in the past decade or so. For emission reduction, it was reduced by 40 to 80%. We can see that for sulfur dioxide, there was a decrease of 86%. For PM2.5, we started monitoring since 2015. And in the past few years, the reduction was at 40%. So it shows that the efforts of both governments have paid off. So what do all these numbers represent? For us living in urban areas, perhaps we didn't feel much difference. Let's switch to another perspective. Let's look at this slide. These photos are provided by the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. It is formed by combining satellite data with information from ground monitor stations. This is a photo of the Pearl River Delta region. It shows the fine suspendable particulates and their concentration. In 2006, we can see much area shaded in red and yellow. They represent a high concentration of fine suspended particulates. The situation worsened in 2007, and then starting from 2008, 2009, the situation started to improve. And then to 2020, basically you can't see any yellow or red anymore. And now the latest situation in 2022, you can see that blue covers the whole area. So this shows that for the whole PRD region, air quality has been significantly improving, and this matches the data that we have. So a brief summary. In 2022, the Hong Kong's overall air quality generally reaches our targets. We can look at the table here. There are 5 major objectives, including nitrogen dioxide, PM10, PM2.5, and nitrogen dioxide. With all these objectives here, and they all comply with the objectives that we have set. And if we look into the numbers in depth for PM2.5 and PM10, they not only satisfy the objectives set in Hong Kong, they have also met the World Health Organization's ultimate targets, that is 30 and 15 microgram respectively. Then let's move to the right. Sulfur dioxide. We can see that the number is far lower than the target set in Hong Kong. It has also reached the WHO's ultimate target for 10-minute average concentration. The number is far below the WHO's target.
So much for the air quality in Hong Kong and in the region. So we feel that in general we have improved. Are there other areas of improvement? For sure, there are. To further improve our local air quality, we have to understand the major challenges we face. To further improve our air quality, what challenges do we have to overcome? This map shows the annual concentrations of nitrogen dioxide in general stations and roadside stations. As can be seen here, there are red spots. And what do they represent? Of course, that means they failed. They have not attained our objectives. In the central part, we have Mong Kok, Causeway Bay and Central, the roadside stations there, and Kwai Chung, Sham Shui Po and Kwun Tong, the general stations there. The average concentration of nitrogen dioxide have exceeded our objectives, while on the whole, we have met the objectives, but there are individual stations that exceeded our targets. So why are they so high there? Any guess why the concentration of nitrogen dioxide is particularly high there? Well, the major source of nitrogen dioxide in Hong Kong, or rather the major sources are from our vehicles, from our vessels, that is sea transport, and the third from our power plants. These are the three major sources of nitrogen dioxide in Hong Kong. In places where traffic is busy or where there are more marine activities, in general, the NO2 concentration will be higher. Now, on the top left-hand corner where we have Tap Moon, the figure there, what does that represent? The figure there is very low. It's as low as 8. Tap Moon has a very sparse population. There are no vehicles, very little vessel activities. That actually represent our ambient NO2 concentration. That's a rough ambient level of nitrogen dioxide for Hong Kong. We come to the conclusion that to tackle nitrogen dioxide in Hong Kong is actually a regional problem. We have to tackle emissions at source in order to be effective. And here is another map to show you the distribution of PM2.5 obtained from our 18 stations. Well, compare this with the one you saw just now. What are the differences? Have you observed any major difference or any particular point to note? You may think that, well, the spots are all blue. That means we have passed in this regard, but that is not the major difference. We have to take a look at the figure for tap moon. What's the figure? 12. As I said, tap moon represents the ambient air pollutants levels. Here in Sam Shui Po, the figure here is also 12. And what is the implication? That means that for PM 2.5, again, it's a regional problem. The concentration is not due to a particular source locally. In order to further lower the concentration of PM 2.5, we must tackle it on a regional level. We have to tackle the regional air quality. In fact, the major challenge for regional emission is ozone. Here is another chart with 3 lines showing the situation for tap moon from the stations in the urban areas and also those from roadside. Have you observed a rather strange situation in relation to the level of ozone? You might have noticed that the ozone level is the highest in tap moon compared with figures for our urban areas and roadside. I said that tap moon represents the ambient air pollution situation. Well, Tap Moon is a sparsely populated area and air should be fresh there. How come the level of ozone there is higher? This is an interesting as well as complicated issue. To understand this issue, we have to understand how ozone is formed. Ozone is not directly emitted from pollution sources. Rather, ozone is formed by photochemical reaction of VOC and nitrogen oxides in air. They have what we call secondary pollutants. Pollutants in the air after a certain chemical reaction will turn into ozone, and therefore it is a regional problem, and the level for the whole region should be more or less the same. So you may say that then the level for our roadside stations and general stations should be roughly the same. How come in the urban areas the level is higher? Now this is because the ozone formed by regional photochemical smog will react with nitrogen oxides emitted from vehicles and so that will lower the level of ozone. So nitrogen oxides at roadsides have a high level in general, and it will react with ozone in the ambient or in the ambient air, and so the ozone level will reduce. The closer to roadsides, the higher the nitrogen oxide concentration, and hence the lower the pollution level. So if there are no nitrogen oxides at all, then it will represent the ambient level. And again, that is also the regional level. Another interesting point is for the ambient ozone level in Tap Moon, at the past decade or so, we have seen very minor fluctuations. They were at around 8%.
But for urban areas, the number has been on the rise, 50%, and for roadside, an increase of 158%. So how do we make sense of these numbers? This is also a very interesting issue. This is related to all the changes in air quality that we've just talked about. This shows that for nitrogen oxides emitted by roadside, the number of these substances is decreasing. And since now the level of nitrogen oxides is dropping, there is not enough nitrogen oxide to react with ozone, and therefore the level of ozone is increasing. So this increase in ozone level shows that our efforts in nitrogen oxide reduction is effective. So in the future, when we reach zero emission by 2050, then nitrogen oxides level will be very low by roadside, and ozone level will gradually increase close to the level of Tap Moon. So we have covered a lot of issues that we face, including local issues and regional issues. Then how are we going to improve that, and what measures do we have to tackle local and regional air quality issues? The former Environment Bureau in 2021 wrote out 3 important policy papers. They are Hong Kong Roadmap on Popularization of Electric Vehicles, Clean Air Plan for Hong Kong 2035, and Hong Kong's Climate Action Plan 2050. These 3 plans have laid out the measures that will be taken to improve air quality in Hong Kong. For Hong Kong Roadmap on Popularization of Electric Vehicles, EV, well, with the adoption of more EVs, we can reduce emission of nitrogen oxide and other pollutants. So in the future, the government will actively promote the adoption of electric private cars. And the government will also promote trials for commercial EVs. It will expand EV charging network to encourage more members of the public to use EV. It will enhance EV maintenance services to ensure smooth operation. There will also be battery recycling, and we hope to see innovative mindsets to create an environment that is suitable for EVs. The Clean Air Plan for Hong Kong 2035. In this plan, we want to lead Hong Kong to be a more livable city with air quality on par with major international cities by 2035, and advancing towards the target of meeting in full the ultimate standards of the World Health Organization air quality guidelines. There are 6 major action areas, including green transport. So it not only includes EV, but also other new energy transport. Livable environment. Through planning and management, we want to create a more livable environment. Comprehensive emission reduction. We want to reduce vehicular emission and vessel emission and emission from power plants. Clean energy, to reduce power plant emission and to look into possibilities to turn waste to energy. Scientific management, we will adopt new technology to monitor air quality and disseminate information to the public. And we want to enhance collaboration with Guangdong and Macau to tackle air quality issue. As for Hong Kong's climate action plan, we want to achieve this through collaboration and improve our air quality. We want to reduce the use of coal for electricity generation. And we are looking into the use of nitrogen energy. And we want to look into the use of electricity in office buildings and residential buildings to reduce emission. As for regional plans, we had some cooperation with Guangdong and Macau, especially in tackling the ozone issue. So we are currently conducting a study, and the results of the study can help us understand about the formation of ozone and therefore formulate appropriate measures. For Guangdong and Hong Kong governments, we will implement new requirements to manage pollutants on VOC. It is included as an item in the monitoring network so that we can continue to monitor its development. The government is going to build a super site for GBA air quality laboratory and meteorology monitoring. So there will be state-of-the-art equipment and design according to standards of the state key laboratory. So we'll be able to monitor the distribution of pollutants and their movement across the region so that we can understand more about their formation. This will help us formulate emission reduction measures. This super site will also serve as an educational base and scientific research base so that scholars can exchange their knowledge at the super site. Just then we have talked about the review of air quality in the region. Well, in 2022, we have started a new round of review. This is in accordance with CAP 311 Air Pollution Control Ordinance. According to the ordinance, a review of the air quality objectives must be carried out at least once in every 5 years. and it has to be submitted to the Advisory Council on the Environment. In a new round of review, we will be benchmarking against the global air quality guidelines released by the WHO in 2021 to explore the possibility for further tightening of the AQOs. We hope that within 2023 we can complete the review. For the air quality objectives in Hong Kong, it covers 7 key air pollutants, including sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, PM10, PM2.5, ozone, carbon monoxide, and lead. The latest AQOs took effect on the 1st of January last year, and among 15 pet at the WHO AQG, we already have 5 set at the most stringent level, and we'll see that in the future whether there is any room for improvement upon review. This is to ensure that our public health is being safeguarded. So that's all from me. The floor is open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Siu. Now, if you'd like to ask questions, please raise your hand and we will pass you the microphone. Please identify the media outlet you represent and also your name. Due to time constraints, each reporter can ask up to 3 questions. Now, from Now TV. Good afternoon, I'm from Now TV. Just now we were told the last year was the best in terms of air quality for 10 years. Well, last year, because of work from home arrangements and also work suspension of factories in the mainland, did that have an impact on the regional as well as local air quality? Now, as we gradually open up and resume normalcy, will the air quality deteriorate? Will we see a further increase in pollutants? And what should be the strategy to cope in the long run? Thank you for your question. We do understand. Let's take a look at this chart. Now, this shows the overall air quality in the past decade. In 2020, because of the pandemic, many activities came to a halt and there was less activities in the community. We wouldn't deny that the situation had helped air quality in general. But in 2022, or the second half of the year, activities started to resume gradually in Hong Kong. There were more activities in the community in the second half of 2022 compared with the year 2021. Still, there was a downward trend for major air pollutants. That goes to show that even though there were more activities, we were more vigorous in trying to cut emissions. So the overall air quality continued to improve. The government or the EPD will continue to introduce emission reduction measures, including the popularization of electric vehicles. Perhaps I should add here that we have started to expedite the popularization of electric vehicles. In December 2022, for every 10 newly registered vehicles, 7 were electric vehicles. So there are more electric cars running in Hong Kong that would indirectly lower the level of emissions. So we have to see whether our measures to cut emissions are effective and sufficient. If so, we believe our air quality can continue to improve. Next, Oriental Daily. Good afternoon, I'm from Oriental Daily. It was just mentioned that the rise in ozone level was because of reduction of vehicle emissions in the urban areas and at our roadsides. That being the case, because you told us that reduction in vehicle emissions will lead to an increase in ozone, does that mean that the rise in ozone level is desirable? Does the ozone level bring any problem to us? How do you address the problem? As regards power generation, the government plans to introduce fuel other than coal for power generation, and in Area 137 of Tseung Kwan O, some of the power generation facilities there may be connected to the nuclear power generation plant in the mainland. So do we plan to have more nuclear energy here? The third question is about ECs. You told us that with more ECs, emission from vehicles has reduced. Yes, we may have more ECs, but the growth of electric franchised buses is rather slow. But then franchised buses is a very common mode of public transport for the community. How can you increase the number of electric franchised buses here? Because it's also about charging facilities for franchised buses as well. How can you improve the charging facilities for buses? Perhaps I can take this question on policies. First, power plant. By 2035 or earlier, we're going to close down all coal-fire generated power plants. We will use natural gas more, and we may import power generated from outside Hong Kong into Hong Kong. And for Area 137 and 132 of Tseung Kwan O, the preliminary plan is if electricity is to be imported into Hong Kong, we plan to build facilities there to receive electricity. And we're not just talking about nuclear energy. We can have other renewable energy as well. As for popularization of ECs, the growth has been high among private cars. We'll continue to work hard, and we'll use the Green Transport Fund to assist public transport operators to try out suitable electric commercial vehicles, goods vehicles in particular. We do not have too many goods vehicles relying on electricity alone. And as for franchised buses, in last year's policy address, 2 indicators were published. First, within 5 years, we're going to have 700 more electric buses running on the road and other 3,000 electric taxis running on our road. We are now formulating various strategies and measures to help operators to attain this target. As for ozone, I hand over to Mr. Siu. As regards ozone, how do we understand the whole thing? Ozone is a regional problem. To address this problem, we have to look at the situation. As I said, ozone is formed by chemical reaction between VOCs and NOx. they have complicated photochemical reaction. To address this problem, we have to tackle the overall VOCs, the emission of VOCs and NOx in the region. Now, for roadside monitoring stations, because we have now fewer NOx emitted, the level of ozone has risen. And that is just a phenomenon to share with you. That phenomenon shows that our efforts to lower NOx emissions have paid off. And so we have seen a rise in ozone level. That is a natural phenomenon. It's not caused by any other matter. So, to tackle the ozone problem in Hong Kong, we must collaborate with Macau as well as Guangdong so as to address the regional ozone problem.
Next question.
RTHK. Our first question will be on how much does the COVID-19 pandemic contribute to the change in air quality? Is a rebound expected with more people flow now? Second is, how should we deal with the increasing ozone levels when roadside pollutant concentrations are expected to reduce? And lastly, can you talk more about how and when will Hong Kong actually meet the ultimate air quality standard set by WHO? Will reducing NO2 be the main focus right now? Thank you.
Maybe I try to answer your first two questions. Your first question is about the contributions of COVID-19 to the air qualities in the last few years. We will not we will agree that the COVID-19 pandemic actually reduced social activities, which will result in less pollutant being emitted from a particular source. However, so we have no particular study that focus on how much it will contribute. But it won't matter because as we look at the quality, the improvement of quality in Hong Kong, we look at the long-term trend instead of look at individual years. On this basis, individual particular events happen in the course of the particular years that does not affect the overall trends of the improvement trends. This will be our main focus. If the the contribution lead to the reverse of the trend, we will pay more attention to such a factor. But we do not foresee that the COVID-19 will actually affect the long-term improvement trend of the quality in Hong Kong. For the improvement of the how to deal with the ozone level in the regions, actually, I have just mentioned in the presentation that we have a lot of collaborations with the Guangdong's governments as well as the Macau. As it is a regional problem that we have to deal with it on regional basis. We got a lot of collaboration and programs, and in particular, we are working with the Guangdong's governments to have a study on have a more detailed study on how the ozones in the River Deltas region, how they arise, how they are distributed, and how the precursor of these two kinds, the precursor materials responsible for formations of the ozone, in particular the VOC and the NOxes. We will take a look at the distributions, and they are rising in the area in order to formulate a more effective reduction policy, reduction measures to deal with the ozone problem in the regions. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I help out to answer the when and how to meet the WHO standards. Maybe my colleagues can put up these two slides. So actually my colleagues already during the presentations mentioned that in order to improve our air quality, we need to know where what are our problems. We need to identify the problems and then to devise reasonable control measures to help us achieve the target. Is this okay? Now this is the slide for NO2. As my colleagues mentioned, if you look at the TAP1 figures, the WHO ultimate target for NO2 is the concentration limit is 10 microgram. If you look at this map, if you ask me, could we reach the WHO standard? I say yes, because if you look at the TAP1 figure, it's already 8. So actually, there are areas in Hong Kong meeting the WHO NO2 ultimate target, but not in the urban area. Okay? So we identify the problem for the NO2 in Hong Kong is due to our own local emissions. That's why we have to devise sufficient control measures to reduce the NOx emissions within Hong Kong ourselves. And it has to be a progress. It could not be changed or improved overnight. So that's why we, every 5 years, we conduct our AQO review to put forward new control measures to continue to tighten the emission standard as well as the relevant air quality objectives. Okay, so this is how we're going to tackle the NOx issue. Now the other problem, next slide please, is the PM 2.5. The WHO standard for PM 2.5 is 5 microgram, which is the ultimate target. Now if you look at TAP1, well, honestly, if you look at the lowest figures in this map, it's 12. What could we do? Even you switch off all the emissions in Hong Kong, you are still around 11 to 12. That means we could not, just by our own effort, to reach the WHO ultimate target of 5 microgram. And we already mentioned that it is a regional issue, just like the ozone. We have to work with our counterparts across our neighborhood to really devise a collaborative efforts to control the regional pollution emissions, which will enable us to reduce the PM as well as the ozone concentration effectively. And this is how we are doing right now. That's why we work with Guangdong as well as Macau to come up with reasonable control measures over the years. And we look forward that, as we mentioned in our Clean Air Plan 2035, by 2035, our air quality will be comparable with the advanced Bay Area around the world.
好，下一題，TVB。
Next, please. Good afternoon. I'm from TVB. Last year, you said that the air quality has been the best in the past decade. Can you tell us more about the reasons? Well, just then it was mentioned that many factories were closed during the pandemic. Are there any other reasons? And during the pandemic, the transport industry has been severely affected. So emission from heavy goods vehicles was reduced. Now that quarantine-free travel has resumed, what will the situation be like after we resume to normalcy? Thank you. Why was there further improvement of air quality in the past year, if we refer to this graph? As I said, we don't just look at the figures from a particular year. We have to look at the long-term trend. Here we can see the overall trend in the past decade. So for any improvement in air quality, it cannot happen overnight. This is long-term effort. The results in 2022 is the result of all the measures rolled out in the past decade, including vehicular emission, control on vessel emission, power plant, etc. All these measures add up to the result that we see today. So there is no one single factor. With the collaboration between the Hong Kong and Guangdong government, the regional air quality has improved. And this is the good result that we are seeing now. There is a downward trend. And we expect to see this downward trend continued in the future with all our emission reduction measures. As for the transport industry, it has contributed to roadside emission. If our emission reduction measures are effective, for example, for older diesel heavy goods vehicle, if we convert them to Euro 6 models, then the results will be better. As we eliminate older models or commercial vehicles with higher emission, then even though traffic flow is increasing, we are confident that the air quality will still show a continual improvement.
In the interest of time, we will take questions from two more reporters. The lady in white. Good afternoon, I'm from cable TV. You mentioned nitrogen dioxide. You said that it has something to do with a particular region. In some areas, the level of nitrogen dioxide is particularly high. Do you have measures to further lower emission of NO2 in these areas? If I may have a go. If we look at the regional distribution of NO2, I think they are related to the number of vehicles. In areas where traffic is busy, then emissions are bound to be higher. You cannot close a particular area from vehicles. So based on the development of a particular area, and as mentioned by Mr. Siu, now we are talking about heavy-duty vehicles. We have a plan to lower emission, that is to replace or phase out Euro 4 vehicles. By 2027, 40,000 pre-Euro 4 vehicles or Euro 4 vehicles will be phased out. They will be replaced by Euro 6 vehicles with better emission standards. So as said by Mr. Siu, while we have a growth in traffic, the polluting vehicles will be replaced by vehicles with better emission standards. But this is not good enough. Of course, the government will continue to improve our policies to improve emissions from vehicles. We will use vehicles with new energy and with low emission to replace the old fleet. Speaker was off mic. The Transport Department is considering electric road pricing. For sure, it may bring some improvements, but that is not going to cut down the level of emission to zero unless we have zero-emission vehicles. The gentleman there. I'm from TMHK. We're told that we have seen improvements in a number of air pollutants. However, green groups are worried that with a normal cross-boundary travel, the number of pollutants or the amount of pollutants may rise again. And then the scheme will be completed very soon. Are you going to extend the scheme? And the percentage of ECs in Hong Kong is less than 10%. Do you find that desirable? What are the difficulties? Is it because we do not provide enough incentives for vehicle owners? Cross-boundary travel with the mainland. Yes, with opening of our borders, there will be heavier traffic. But then vehicles are having better emission standards. They are much better than they were 3 years ago. With opening up of the borders, traffic will increase, but the vehicles are better now. And as old vehicles continue to be phased out, I'm sure the air quality situation will improve. As for the 1-for-1 electric vehicle replacement scheme, it's well received. Many owners have used the scheme to replace their old vehicles, and we will soon announce what will happen to the scheme. We have about close to 45,000 electric vehicles in Hong Kong. I suggest we do not just look at the current figure. As said by Mr. Siu, we should look at the growth. 3 years ago, the figure was even lower. For this year, for every 2 new vehicles sold, 1 is an EC, and that is over 52%. What does that mean? In 2021, the total number of electric vehicles sold was 9,700 odd, and the figure was 19,000 in 2022, 10,000 more than it was in 2021. The focus should be on the growth. And as for electric charging network, we are also improving charging at home. We have spent $3.5 billion to sponsor land property owners to add EV charging infrastructure in their own car parks. We believe that by 2027, we'll be able to help at least 140,000 parking spaces to be fitted with charging facilities. So we will have enough charging facilities to support 140,000 vehicles. That is another 100,000 in the coming few years. It shouldn't be a problem. I hope the community understands that we'll continue to work hard to provide the infrastructure for EV so that car owners will like to turn to zero-emission vehicles. That ends the press briefing. Thank you very much.